Good evening. I am Terry Young, Chair of the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences here at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Welcome to the 2021 biannual Age-Related Macular Degeneration Symposium, which is co-sponsored by the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired and the University of Wisconsin Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences. This event is important to our department as another projection of how we live the Wisconsin idea, which is the underlying principle that the influence and efforts of the university should reach and benefit every person in the state. Given this as our North Star, it is our vision and mission to share our collective knowledge and discoveries on the subject of AMD with you, which is also in the spirit of the university's commitment to public service and educating beyond the boundaries of the classroom. With this symposium, we specifically provide timely and innovative research and educational advances in the areas of prevention, diagnosis, and treatments for AMD, as well as a sharing of resources to enhance activities of daily living and for advocacy. Welcome again. I am so very pleased that you are here. On Wisconsin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Age-Related Macular Degeneration Symposium. We are delighted to be able to join you virtually this afternoon for everyone's safety and also to increase accessibility. Please sit back from the comfort of your home and enjoy and learn from our incredibly talented and knowledgeable speakers this afternoon. I'm Denise Jess, the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I am absolutely honored and delighted to be able to partner again this year with the University of Wisconsin Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences to offer this AMD symposium. The Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired is a statewide nonprofit organization, and we'll celebrate our 70th anniversary next year. Our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of people in Wisconsin living with vision loss through advocacy, education, and vision services. This afternoon, you'll be treated to two panels of professionals who have dedicated their life's work to creating a better quality of life for those of us living with vision loss. So panel one, in our first hour, you'll have the opportunity to meet and hear from some of the members of the vision services team from the council, and they'll share with you vision rehabilitation skills, resources, tools, and services that can really enable us to live full, fulfilling lives. In the second half of our time together, you'll meet the talented doctors from the University of Wisconsin Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences, who will delve into the current research and treatment of age-related macular degeneration. We want to thank you so much for the great questions that you provided when you registered, and many of these questions have been worked into the panel's discussions. Additionally, if you have more questions, you're welcome to put those into the chat on the toolbar in your Zoom platform, and the panelists will address those questions as time permits. You know, when we are gathered together at the Alliant Energy Center, as we have in the past for this symposium, one of the things that so many attendees love, in addition to the sessions, is the opportunity to meet our resource vendors out on the vendor floor. So we want to include that experience tonight as well, and we'll introduce you to 5 of our vendors through some short videos. We also mailed to each of you a goodie package just chocked full with lots and lots of resources. If you have not received that yet, keep a lookout for it in your mail, and hopefully it'll arrive to you soon. Lastly, I want to express our sincere gratitude to our sponsors, Associated Bank, SVA Accounting, and the Lighthouse Guild. Their generosity has helped make this event happen this evening. One small housekeeping detail: if you are someone who would benefit from closed captioning, you are welcome to enable that on your Zoom toolbar where you find the CC or closed caption. Simply click that and you should see the captioning on your screen. So again, sit back, enjoy the evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
To me, being a Paralympic athlete means showing the world what I'm capable of, not what my disability is. My name is Amy Dixon. I'm 45 years old, and I am a visually impaired athlete on the U.S. Paralympic team. I have a rare form of uveitis, which is an inflammatory autoimmune eye disease, and I also have neovascular and steroid-induced glaucoma secondary to uveitis. So at the age of 22, I was experiencing what's called photopsia, sort of like when a camera lens opens and shuts really fast. So I would see a picture of an image and then it would disappear during one of the flashes, like a bad connection on a TV screen. It's a degenerative condition and will likely render me eventually completely blind, but I still have 2% of remaining vision straight ahead. Before my diagnosis, I was very, very active. My sister always nicknamed me Crash because I was constantly running into things. Everyday activities that are challenging for me, I would say, is looking at my phone, knowing if someone's standing next to me, cooking. I also use a cane, but I definitely prefer a dog that has an opinion about cars. One of the things that frustrates me is seeing people with vision loss that are not able to be gainfully employed or keep gainful employment because of their visual limitations. And I saw Iris Vision as a great tool to be able to keep these people working and a contributing member of society for as long as possible. The coolest thing about trying Iris Vision is that I saw my hand for the first time in 23 years. Because of my vision loss, I can only see about half of my hand, the other half is black, and my arms are only so long. And the other part was that I finally got to see a whole piece of paper, whereas normally I can only see a couple lines at a time. It felt like voodoo magic. I was like, how does this work? And how do we make this available for everyone? Like, I thought it was a miracle. The Inspire has been game-changing for me as someone living with vision loss. I'm finally able to safely chop vegetables in my kitchen. And if someone's standing next to me, now I actually know that they're there. And I'm able to watch television, so I finally get to see the whole TV screen and see all the action. I would 100% recommend Inspire. It's such an empowering tool that's gonna give you such ability beyond disability. It's a dream come true. I never imagined as a little girl that I would be going to represent my country on the biggest stage, certainly not as someone with vision loss. And thanks to the incredible technology that's available to me out there, I've been able to pursue my dream of representing my country on the Paralympics with Team USA in triathlon.
In this video, you'll learn how to use the ScriptTalk Station reader to speak the information contained on your medication labels. The ScriptTalk Station was designed for those who can't clearly read their medication labels. It is a system installed by your pharmacy to help you independently access your prescription information. Talking prescription labels are crucial to ensuring medication safety and independence. ScriptTalk was designed with tactile buttons and a loudspeaker to give you all your prescription information audibly. You will hear drug name, dosage, instructions, warnings, pharmacy information, doctor's name, prescription number and date, as well as other information. So buckle up and let's learn how to use this wonderful device. First, ScriptTalk uses a special electronic label placed on your medication container by your pharmacist. This is a free service provided by participating pharmacies. This special label uses RFID or radio frequency identification to relay the vital prescription label information to your ScriptTalk station. Use the small wheel on the right lip of the machine to turn it on and turn up the volume. Once the machine is on, press the oval button on the face of the machine in the front center. This is the read button. Once you push the read button, you will hear an audible ticking sound. When you hear this, simply place the bottom of the prescription bottle on the face of your ScriptTalk Station reader. All your prescription label information will be read out loud. You can skip through information or jump back if you miss something. The two triangle buttons on either side of the read button allow you to jump forward or back through your prescription label information. That's all there is to it. Simple, isn't it? If you have an iPhone or Android smartphone, you can also download the ScriptTalk app to access your prescription information. Now your vital prescription label information is available to you whenever you need it, wherever you need it. If you need assistance finding a pharmacy near you that offers ScriptTalk, please call Envision America at 1-800-890-1180 or visit www.envisionamerica.com.
We all want a full life.
One that's rich in possibilities.
That lets me keep doing the things I love.
And make the most of my abilities.
My local Aging and Disability Resource Center helps me get there.
They offer free, unbiased information and support, so older adults
and people with disabilities can stay independent.
And no caregiver has to go it alone.
Find support for your full life at findmyadrc.org.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for attending the virtual age-related macular degeneration today. As you heard a few moments ago, and for those who may have just recently signed in, there will be 2 panel presentations today. Our team from the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired will speak about options for vision rehabilitation and address the questions that several people submitted during the registration. Even if you didn't have a chance to submit a question, you may find you have had a similar experience or share a similar concern. After a video break, the eye doctors from UW Health will speak about current research and treatments for macular degeneration. Please continue to add questions into the chat and we will do our best to address those if time allows. My name is Amy Werf and I am a certified low vision therapist with the Council. My role is to show people how to maximize their remaining vision using lighting, color, contrast, and magnification. I provide low vision evaluations at the Council offices, and I also work with people in their homes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brent Przenka, and I'm a certified vision rehabilitation therapist with the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. As a vision rehabilitation therapist, I generally visit clients in their homes or workplaces to provide guidance in adaptive, independent living skills, enabling adults who are blind and visually impaired to confidently carry out their daily activities.
Hi, I'm Jean Kelscher. I'm a vision rehabilitation teacher with the Council, and like Brent, I provide in-home vision-related services to people in and around Dane County. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just talking a little bit about services and what's available for people. So I often hear from my clients a comment like, I just had my eye exam and the doctor says glasses won't help. Now what? The next step may be vision rehabilitation services. Vision rehab has been shown to improve overall well-being and quality of life. Vision rehab can improve your independence in daily tasks. Success is achieved through assistive devices, various non-visual techniques, and often learning to use your existing technology in new ways. Here in Wisconsin, your starting point might be the State of Wisconsin Office for the Blind and Visually Impaired. They have 12 vision rehabilitation specialists who cover each county in the state. To find your local OBVI vision rehab specialist, go to the website that has been put in the chat and click on your county. It will give you the contact information for your vision rehab specialist who will provide services in your home at no cost to you. If you aren't a Wisconsin resident, there's a comparable office in each and every state. Other places where you can get services, of course, there's the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. We're physically located in Dane County, and so anyone in that area can call and request services. There are other agencies throughout the state similar to the council. So Vision Forward is in the Milwaukee area, the Center for Sight and Hearing is in the Rockford area, and the Lighthouse Center for Vital Living in Duluth can serve people in the northwest corner of Wisconsin. Consider using the Veterans Administration if you are a veteran of the U.S. Armed Services. Their blind rehabilitation services assist you to develop skills needed for personal independence. These services are available at the VA centers in Milwaukee, Madison, Toma, and Iron Mountain. There are occupational therapists who are specialized in low vision. They may be found at a local rehabilitation facility or affiliated with your eye clinic. Be sure and ask your eye doctor or her or his staff for recommendations for vision rehabilitation services in your area. And start considering services when you have changes in vision that begin to affect everyday function.
Many of you have experienced challenges, I'm sure, in your daily activities. So let's talk about some adaptations and how vision rehabilitation can help. We had a question from Robert in Lakewood, Colorado, who asked, which television technologies can make it easier for the visually impaired to watch TV? Well, first, there are some simple, cost-effective ways that can help you watch your television. Moving closer to your TV will also make it easier to see. This also enables you to turn your head and use the better part of your vision to help see the television screen. Having your television located in a spot that reduces glare can also be helpful. Make sure that your TV is not in front of a window or a room lamp that might produce glare. Some cable companies and certain televisions also have options to make both the channel guide and the picture on your screen bigger. These features can be found under the accessibility menu on your television and cable menus, but sometimes you need to call your local cable provider and have those activated. If you're having trouble seeing your television remote, putting some simple bump dots that are raised on particular buttons that you use mainly can also help control your television set. Some cable companies do provide larger print remotes as well, which you might need to ask for. And there's also voice-activated options on some remotes that you can use to help control your television.
When it's necessary to move to magnification for television, there are low-powered binoculars that fit like a pair of glasses that can help you see TV more clearly. These must only be worn when you are sitting still and when you are around 4 feet or farther away. They are not a perfect answer, as you may not be able to see the entire screen at one time, and they can feel heavy and make your eyes feel tired if you wear them too long. A single lens monocular telescope can be used to briefly spot check something on the screen, like a score of a football game or something on the news that you want to see. You won't want to watch TV too long using a monocular telescope, however, because your arm is going to get too tired to hold that up. A non-visual option for using television is using audio descriptions. Audio description addresses the accessibility of visual images of television and movies for people who are blind and visually impaired. Audio description gives information about visual content that is important for comprehension of a scene. Audio description of video provides information about actions, characters, scene changes, on-screen text, and other visual content. It supplements the regular audio track of a program and is usually added during natural pauses in dialogue. The website for the American Council of the Blind Audio Description Project has a master list of available audio described videos and TV shows, as well as information about how to access them. That website link will be in the chat.
If you want a high-tech option for watching TV, the Vision Buddy would be a good choice. It's a head-worn device. They look like virtual reality goggles. So you saw the video from Iris Vision, and Vision Buddy looks similar to those goggles. It has a wireless streaming box that connects with your TV's cable box. The TV image and sound are sent directly into the Vision Buddy goggles. The TV image can be magnified up to 12 times. Some describe the experience as having a theater screen floating in front of their eyes. Vision Buddy can be used for other magnification needs as well, but it is the only one that has been specifically designed for watching television. Vision Buddy costs about $3,000. And Vision Buddy is one example of head-worn technology that some of you might see in commercials or hear about on TV programs like Dr. Phil. So Luann from Spring Green has noted that when she's been watching television, and she has seen ads for vision aids that allow people with advanced AMD to see, and she's asking if these are valid options. The head-worn devices are a relatively recent addition to the low vision adaptive device arena and may be an option for some with AMD. The names you might see include eSight, Envision glasses, Iris Vision, Ace Sight, Geordie Vision, and others. These goggle-type devices look like the virtual reality goggles, and some look like big, dark sunglasses that sit away from your eyes. They are worn on the head with either straps or a headband. They have a forward-facing camera that records what is in front of the wearer and magnifies that in front of your eyes. The amount of magnification and contrast can be adjusted for individual needs. There has been some research on some of the earlier devices that demonstrate that they do help with reading acuity, contrast sensitivity, face recognition, money management, medication management, and playing cards for all of the euchre players in Wisconsin who are out there. These devices are costly, ranging from $2,500 to $6,000. The council has a video from this summer's Low Vision Fair if you'd like to see what some of these are like. That link is in the chat. Another similar yet different device is the Orcam, and this is often seen on Dr. Phil. This is a typical pair of glasses, any glasses, and there's a camera attached to the bow. The wearer looks toward text and activates the camera. And the camera can be activated in several ways, by pointing at the text or by flicking the little camera device. And they also have voice activation with commands. The camera takes a picture of the text, converts it to sound, and reads it aloud to you. And it has a bone conduction reader so that not everybody around you is hearing that same text. So these are different from the other head-worn devices. There's no change in the image that you see. This is an auditory option for accessing printed text. You can see these devices in person at Vision Forward in Milwaukee, the Low Vision Store in St. Paul, Minnesota, or the Chicago Lighthouse. It's a good idea to call and arrange an appointment so staff will be available to assist you, as exploring these devices takes some time and needs to be set up for your individual needs.
Thanks, Jean. We had another question here. Becky from Madison asks, my 91-year-old mother has severe macular degeneration along with rheumatoid arthritis and dementia. Her eyes are so sensitive to natural light that all the blinds in the house must always be closed, even on a cloudy day, but she still wants bright lights on in the house. I find this puzzling. Would this be related specifically to AMD or one of her other diagnoses? Well, Becky, I cannot speak to her specific condition and diagnosis, but I can tell you that as we age, we do need more light in order to do our daily tasks. In fact, we require 4 times as much light at the age of 80 to perform the same task as we did when we were 18. So, having good lighting is important, especially for task work. Finding the best lighting for each person is going to be specific to their vision. So working with the low vision therapist to find what colors and what brightnesses work best for you is the best option. Also, as we age, our eyes become more sensitive to glare. So this can be a bit of a double-edged sword since we need more light to see, but we need to block out that glare. In order to combat the glare, it's a good idea to have a filter evaluation done by a low vision clinic. This helps identify the best colored filters that will help for your eyes and in different lighted situations. There's specific colors in the filters that help. Another part of our vision that decreases as we age is our ability to see contrast. So the more contrast we have, the better off we're going to be. Think black on white or white on black. If we can incorporate these into our daily lives as best we can, hopefully the better they can help us see.
And vision impairment often gets in the way of pursuing those activities and hobbies that were once enjoyed. An example is quilting. Betty from Plover asks, I am a hobby-level seamstress. Will you please discuss aids available for this hobby, both hand and sewing machine? I am having trouble threading needles, sewing a straight seam, and using quilting rulers, among other challenges. So a few suggestions for you, Betty, would include to first start with good task lighting. And this comes up all the time whenever we're talking about doing task activities. Brent mentioned it when talking about the question earlier, and the same holds true with any time that you're dealing with a tabletop task. You want good task lighting, and with sewing, you want it over your non-dominant hand so that you don't get a lot of shadowing on your project. So for sewing machine use, a task light in front of and to the left of the pressure foot may be helpful. A light with a magnifier attached is even better. However, you have to learn how to look through the magnifier and then move your hand to the needle or to the guidelines correctly, because they're going to look different through the magnifier. For hand sewing, there are 2 basic kinds of needles. So one has a V at the top, and you put the thread in the V and then pull it down into the eye of the needle. The other has an S channel that's been carved into the metal, and so you slide your thread down the needle until it catches in that S channel, and then you pull it through. In my experience, these work well as long as you're on light to medium weight fabric. When you go to heavier fabric, the thread backs itself out when you tug on the thread and the needle. There are also S-channel needles for sewing machines that come in different sizes, just like typical sewing machine needles. There are needle threaders that can be used with any needle that you have in your home, so you don't have to buy special needles. The threader has like a chimney, and the needle eye goes down into the chimney, and then there's a little metal plate that pushes the thread through the eye. And this works pretty well once you figure out how to get the thread set up in relation to the needle. To help sew straight lines, there are magnetic seam guides. So this is a raised fence that attaches to the metal portion of your machine. It extends toward the seamstress, and you feed fabric into the needle by following that raised edge. You don't necessarily have to get a magnetic seam guide if you have contrasting duct tape. And duct tape comes in all colors nowadays. You can just extend that guideline all the way towards you so that you're following that guideline easily as you feed the thread into the needle. The downside of the duct tape is you have to keep changing it depending on how far away your sewing is going to be from the needle. Quilting ruler lines can be made more visible with permanent ink. You may need to get several rulers of the same kind because if you mark with permanent ink all the lines on a quilting ruler, it's going to be just as confusing as if you didn't mark any line because there's way too many lines. So you might end up having to have a couple different rulers marked for different projects that they're going to be used for. And since many quilters use a rotary cutter, just to mention, you might want to consider a Kevlar glove for your non-dominant hand so that when you're running that rotary down the ruler, if it happens to jump from the ruler away or you get off the line and runs into your hand, you're not going to nick your hand. So if you have any activity or hobby that needs adaptations, talk with your vision rehab specialist to brainstorm ideas, because a lot of these things aren't real front and center. It really takes sitting down and looking at what you want to do, then figuring out how it can be best adapted. So there's often not one solution per hobby. You really have to figure it out on a one-to-one basis. So many of us also use computers and tablets every day. Our lives are dependent on the digital world. As vision changes, challenges with existing technology can occur. And I've heard many people give up using their computer or their smartphone or their tablet because they have poor vision, which is really too bad because all computers, desktop computers, laptop computers, tablets, and name brand cell phones have accessibility option. And so when information is presented digitally, you can adjust how it looks or how it appears to you. These are turned on in the control panel or settings area of the device, and they can work in most, not all, but most programs that you're going to be using. So when online, your browser also has options so that you can alter the color of the text. So you can say, don't show me any gray text, present gray text as black text, but not all browsers allow you to do that. If size of font helps, a quick way to increase size of font when you're online or in email is to, on a PC, is you hold down the control key and you tap the plus key, or you hold down the control key and scroll forward if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse. Each tap or push forward increases the size about 10%. And you just pull it back or tap the minus key to decrease the size again. So on a PC, the command is Control plus. If you're on a Mac, it's Option Command plus. And if you no longer are having a good luck using vision, if you're spending lots and lots of time trying to use your vision to read something, it might be time to consider audio options on your electronic devices. And your computers, tablets, and smartphones also have options for audio. But that's often a pretty big step because you have to do things in quite a different way than you're used to. And so you want to make sure that you get some help learning that and not get frustrated with just trying it out on your own. If you need help becoming more proficient with computers, tablets, and smartphone technology, training is available. So for example, just for a small commercial for my colleague, Jim Denham, he provides access technology training, and this is especially helpful when having to learn a new way of accessing your devices. And Jim is able to provide technology services remotely, so you don't have to come to us, he doesn't come to you. It's all done remotely. But there are other options. You can check with your OBVI vision rehab specialist or your independent living center. So there's 7 or 8, I can't remember exactly, independent living centers around Wisconsin, and they have technology specialists who do provide training, and those people are on their staff, so there's not a cost in order to get the training that you might need. But Mary's question also gets at a little bit about her having noticed that web pages are not always very accessible. And even though there are guidelines, there's no web police or no control over how things are done. So this gets at the advocacy hat that we all can wear. So organizations and businesses may not even be aware that their web pages are hard to read due to size or color of text, or that pictures and images aren't tagged to tell a user what the picture or image is when you can't see it. So if it says click here and then has a button, if you can't see that and it's not tagged properly, you have no idea where you're supposed to click. So what you need to do is advocate for what you need in order to use their web pages successfully. Let them know. Contact them and identify why their web pages are not easy for you to use. This self-advocacy likely will help others as well as you to use their pages. So after you advocate for your needs, expect change. And if you don't see it, check again with those businesses and organizations. And self-advocacy may also be necessary with family and friends. Keep folks informed of your needs. It may take several reminders, but keep on it, and eventually family and friends will meet your needs in a better way.
Thank you, Jean. A concern we hear very often from people that we work with relates to driving and available transportation options. So let's spend some time talking about transportation. Kelly from Janesville had submitted a question about asking if there's resources for drivers with remaining low vision in Wisconsin. So the regulations from the Wisconsin DMV website state that to be eligible for a Wisconsin driver license, you must be able to see details clearly and see to the sides. Wisconsin is consistent with other states in establishing 20/40 vision and a 70-degree field of vision as the level for an unrestricted driver license. Vision of less than or worse than 20/40 in each eye, or less than a 70-degree field of vision may require referral to a vision specialist for recommendations, a driving skills test, or restrictions on the license, such as daytime only, additional mirrors on the sides of the car, or limiting the distance for driving. Bioptic lenses may not be used to meet the standards. And a bioptic lens is a specialized lens that are fit and prescribed by eye doctors for seeing things at a distance. Some states do allow driving with bioptic lenses, but there must be strong, good practice and training beforehand so the driver can understand how to best safely use these glasses. They require great care for use in driving. Again, they are not legal for passing the driver evaluation in Wisconsin. Again, you should speak with your eye doctor if you have concerns about driving and to talk about options for an adaptive driving evaluation. Please, though, understand your own comfort level and the possible need for limitations in terms of driving. If you are in an accident and it's discovered that your vision is impaired enough to impact your ability to safely drive, you are at risk for losing your insurance coverage. You may be liable for all damages even if you were not at fault in the accident. That quick trip to the grocery store or to run down the street to church just a few blocks from home may not be worth taking that risk with your own health and safety, as well as the safety of others who are on the road. And Brent, could you discuss some of the options that are available for people who can no longer drive?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. There are some transportation options available for those that are unable to drive. Most of these public transportation options are implemented by your local community or city, so they could be different depending on where you live. Each county in Wisconsin has a local Aging and Disability Resource Center. These ADRCs, along with some other public transportation systems, have what are called mobility managers on their staff. Mobility managers are in place to help individuals access and plan transportation options for each individual based on their needs. Some possible means of transportation provided by local communities may include buses, taxis, volunteer drivers that can help with shopping, medical, business, and personal needs. These volunteer drivers, are also known as driver escorts, are arranged on the availability of the volunteer, and the services do vary from location to location. So please contact your local ADRC for a listing of the transportation services that are available in your area. Paratransit may also be an option for transportation. The American with Disabilities Act requires public transit agencies that provide fixed route services, so think bus routes, to also provide complimentary paratransit service to people with disabilities who cannot use the fixed route bus or rail service because of their disability. Paratransit rides are scheduled a day in advance, and a reduced payment is also required for these. Some other transportation options to consider might be your local church, family members, or local charity organizations. Another thing that you might want to consider for safety and navigation is to consider getting a white cane. Now, this decision can be a tough one, a difficult one, and an emotional one. And using a white cane can help, though, with maintaining your independence. White canes are designed for different purposes. There's canes that are designed more for mobility, some that are designed specifically more for identification, and some that also help with support. The best way to know which one is going to be best for you is to talk to a professional in your area to assess your goals and situation. The Wisconsin Council of the Blind provides free canes to Wisconsin residents every 2 years as needed. The professionals that help provide these services are called orientation and mobility instructors. So they're located around the state to help individuals learn their local areas and how to use these canes safely to get around. If you'd like to contact your local orientation and mobility specialist, contact your vision rehabilitation therapist in your area to help get recommended for orientation and mobility services.
Okay. Thanks, Brent. And as Brent mentioned, there's many changes that we make, and some of them can be pretty emotional. All of those challenges that come with vision change can take a toll on our overall well-being. Sarah from Toma asked about dealing with the fact that you will never have vision again as you once knew it. So many limitations, very hard to accept. So Sarah, you are definitely not alone. Almost all the people I've met over the years that I've practiced in this area have expressed this thought, this fear, this frustration about life with changing vision. And there is no easy solution, but these feelings are real. Support groups can be incredibly effective at giving you space to share experiences with others going through the same thing. Someone in the group may be at a different point and can talk about how they were able to move forward in spite of the challenges. Others in the group will give you support. Support groups are a good place to share. They're also a good place to laugh at some of the experience that you've had, and others in your family may have no idea why you would laugh about them. But other people who've experienced the same frustration or embarrassment or oops in their world know what you're going through. The council maintains a list of support groups throughout Wisconsin. If there isn't one in your area or you are not able to get to one, consider an online or telesupport group. The council, Vision Forward, and some of the OBVI vision rehab specialists facilitate online or telephone-based support groups. Through mdsupport.org, you can join monthly telesupport groups with people throughout the country. There are also support groups that meet through Facebook. If adjusting to the new you is an ever-present challenge, consider seeking the help of a mental health professional. You can find a professional through websites like Therapy Den and Psychology Today. There's a link to a presentation by Guy Blackstone, who's a Dane County mental health therapist with vision loss, on the council's YouTube channel, along with recommended resources.
Thank you, Jean. It's really important to know that there are such great resources available for people. Another concern we hear from people we work with was addressed with this question from Charlotte and Ripon. I find that my vision, especially when reading, improves somewhat later in the afternoon and evening. Am I correct? Everyone's vision fluctuates throughout the day and from day to day. The fluctuation can be caused by lighting, glare, and eye fatigue. Your general health, such as blood pressure, blood sugar levels, physical fatigue, or illness can also play a role in that vision changing. It can be important to recognize when your vision is at its peak and try to maximize that time to do important tasks. One way to manage eye fatigue is to take several little breaks throughout the day when you're working on tasks. This is as simple as blinking several times, looking away from the task and across the room and shifting your gaze, and just taking those short little breaks. Taking those breaks can oftentimes stretch out that period of effective vision that you have and help reduce that eye strain and fatigue. So during this talk, we've shared many options for assistance at different levels of complexity, from bump dots to telescopes to wearable technology, from transportation options, how to work on hobbies again, and finding social or mental health support as needed. We'd like to encourage you to consider working with a vision rehabilitation professional to help you find the most appropriate tools that will help meet your needs. There are many options for magnifiers and electronic reading devices, many routes to access computers and cell phones, and many techniques to help reduce some of your frustration working with daily activities. A guided evaluation can be very important to help you manage all of that frustration and just help you get back to doing the things that you'd like to do again. A low vision evaluation, a home evaluation, an access technology assessment, or a scheduled appointment in the council's Sharper Vision store can be beneficial to help you find the tools that you're comfortable and satisfied with. I'd like to give another little shout out to a member of our team who's not with us on this panel, is Jim Denham, as Jean mentioned. He is an access technology specialist, and he works with people to make sure that when they're ready to make the transition to large print and speech to access a computer. Jim teaches people to use speech and screen reading or screen magnification software, accessing smartphones, and using Braille displays. And each member of the team also works with people on using those home smart devices, such as the Google Home and the Amazon Echo. Bianca, are there any questions in the chat?
We do have some. Todd asked, does Medicare cover any of these items specifically related to the TV technology that you spoke about at the beginning?
I can take that question. Do you need me to repeat the question? The question was whether or not Medicare or Medicaid or any other health insurer will cover some of the devices. The short answer is no. They are not covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or other health providers. There are some funding options that people can explore, but not a lot of them. So in Wisconsin, we have what's called the Wiz Tech Loan Program, which is a low interest extended loan for people. And that is one, and the purpose of the loan is for people with disabilities to access technology that's expensive. And so that might be a route. You can also check with local philanthropic groups in your area to see if they are willing to help. They may not cover the whole cost, but they may be able to offer some money toward the purchase. So examples might be a Lions Club, homemakers groups, and others in your local community.
Another question is, what other daily living tasks can you help you with at home?
Sure, I can take that one. The question was, what other daily living tasks can we help with at home? So many of the things that we help with are your regular day-to-day activities. So if you're a cook or a baker and you're struggling to make your famous family recipe, we can help adapt your kitchen and teach new techniques and how to continue to do those things. If you're struggling with organizational type things in your home, if it's putting your clothes together to identify what colors go with which, names and addresses that you're struggling to find in your small address book that you used to have, those type of things, we can find new ways to keep you organized, new techniques and how to clean. We can teach you how to do that. And others, Jean had mentioned earlier, lots of times it's a new situation that we just kind of figure out a way on the fly. So maybe you're, a home repair type of person and you like to tinker in your garage, but you're not able to see those tools anymore. There's technology and different ways we can figure out in how to continue to keep you doing those things. So those are a few of the kind of main ones that we usually help people out in their homes on.
Diane asks, how does one find a low vision specialist without having to travel distance?
Well, I'll take that. So in the Madison area, we do low vision at the council. The UW has Dr. Sanbrita Mondal, who provides low vision evaluations. There are a few other low vision doctors in town who are also providing that. Around the state, there's a few up in the northern area or the central area of Wisconsin. Vision Forward has an optometrist who provides low vision. And sometimes what I've just done is a Google search for low vision and the county or the state that you might be from. You could always give us a call at the council and we can help link you up with that. As far as remote training for low vision, that's a little more difficult because you really do need to have your hands on the devices and have someone seeing the print that you're seeing to be able to be truly successful.
Is there a big magnifier that will let me read a page of print at one time?
I'll take that one too. That's a very, very, very common question. Everyone comes in and wants that page size magnifier that's a 10 power magnifier. Unfortunately, something like that just doesn't exist. Magnifiers at low powers are larger, but the page magnifiers you may see at the bookstore or at the Home Depot are very, very low power. They're probably 1.5 times, maybe 2 times and they're generally not very good quality and not very useful for people beyond once you need glasses. So as we get with magnifiers, we're trapped by the way that they are manufactured. And as a magnifier gets stronger, it gets thicker in the middle and thinner at the edges. So as they get stronger, they naturally have to get smaller and smaller if you're talking about a physical handheld magnifier. Once you reach that where those magnifiers aren't very satisfactory, then we start looking at electronic magnifiers. And there are some electronic magnifiers that are around the size of a Kindle or an iPad that will get more of that page. Then we step up to the large reading devices or closed circuit televisions where you can put a page of print on a table and it projects the image up in front of you on a screen. You're still not going to get that whole page, but you will get more. And of course, unfortunately, as the technology increases and we get more involved, the prices do increase. But again, that takes some training and some evaluation and also just getting yourself behind the magnifiers and the options to see what you might be comfortable with.
And our last one, Robert asked, my mother with macular degeneration lives in the Netherlands in Europe. What would be a good contact there for locating vision rehab specialists?
You're the lady who.
So someone in the Netherlands has a family member in the Netherlands who needs low vision services. I've actually Googled for someone in Poland that needed some services. So Google is your friend, and just type in the country first and look for low vision services and see what you can find. Any other suggestions you guys have?
I would suggest looking through or going to just through their physician to see who's in the area that they could ask. Just through a socialized medicine process, I'm going to guess that they also have lists of who's there and who's providing what kind of services.
And if your mother is looking for emotional support or social outlet, our low vision support group did have a member from Poland for a brief period in our group. So we're an international support group, so she's welcome to join us as well.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Ed Haynes. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Hadley. As we age, we're more likely to develop a visual impairment. In fact, vision loss, very rare in childhood, is far more common in older adults, especially for those facing age-related diseases like macular degeneration, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy. With these conditions, we typically retain some useful vision, but the impairment can't be corrected by lenses, surgery, or medication. And it can make everyday living much more challenging. Studies show that vision loss in older adults often brings with it other negative outcomes, like falls, isolation, cognitive decline, and depression.
I also did lots and lots of sewing. I love working with fabric and sewing. That has really suffered. It hit me pretty strong, pretty badly. I have COPD as well as the vision problem, and they both seem to appear or be identified at about the same time. And I came home one day, I just went to bed and cried.
But it doesn't have to be this way. Hadley has been helping thousands of people like Ruth for more than 100 years. Workshops offer practical help and share new ways to approach everyday tasks. From using the vision features on a smartphone, to labeling medications, to personal care, our practical tips can be immediately applied, increasing safety, confidence, and hope for the future. And each workshop is staffed by vision professionals because no question should go unanswered. Hadley's monthly discussion groups connect adults with vision loss to each other, decreasing that sense of isolation, replacing it with a community of others who get it. What's more, Hadley's help is easy to find, on the phone, online, or through the mail. As a nonprofit, our goal is to eliminate barriers and change lives. So, all our help is offered completely free of charge.
So I have what I have. All I'll get will be worse, but I won't get better. So now it's been up to me to figure out how to live with this. And resources are very slim. Hadley is a godsend. I get ideas and places to go and ways to look at things, and just every day. Also, the everyday help is great.
Hadley. Help is in sight.
Welcome to Vision Forward, and thanks for joining us on this virtual tour. My name is Corey Ballard, and I'm the Director of Technology here at Vision Forward. Technology is allowing us to provide this doors open experience to you, but the access to technology and the needed training has opened so many doors for people like myself living with vision loss by providing us equal access, the ability to work, stay in touch with our friends and family, and so much more. So we'd love for you to join us on this virtual tour, meet some of our amazing staff, and find out why Vision Forward is so unique in Milwaukee.
A front lobby with two people approaching the camera. One is using a white cane.
Here comes Steve in our adult rehab wing. He's working with a client, teaching them how to travel safe with a cane.
Technology and Education Center.
Thanks for coming to visit us here in the technology room at Vision Forward. My name is Luke and I'm an assistive technology specialist here. And in the technology room, we help people out with their technology needs. This is a CCTV, and we can use it to magnify any text that we put underneath it.
Zoom 13.
And we can also change the color of the text for better contrast.
Black on white.
Now here in the Technology Center, we work closely with the Low Vision Clinic that we have at Vision Forward. And the Low Vision Clinic is there to assess your remaining functional vision and to help teach you how to use it to complete the daily tasks that you might want to complete.
Adult Rehabilitation Kitchen.
Hi, my name is Rose Visser. I'm an occupational therapist and activities of daily living instructor here at Vision Forward Association. I want to show you a small sample of what I do. I train people in their activities of daily living. So I want to show you an example. Identifying your items can be one task that can be very difficult with vision loss, but with some adaptive tools and techniques, you can do it much easier. So what I'm going to show you is a tool called the Pen Friend. The Pen Friend is a tool, it's a way for you to create audio labels on items that maybe you can't identify, whether that is items in your kitchen or your medication bottles. So let me show you how this works. It's a tool that I put a label on my medication bottle, for example, and I record a message onto that label. Once I touch the tool to that label, I'm going to hear what I recorded. So let's listen.
Blood pressure medicine.
So it says blood pressure medicine. This is a way for me to be able to identify my medication independently without depending on somebody else to do that. This tool and other adaptive tools can, again, allow you some independence in identifying items around your home. There's tactile paint called Spot and Line Pen. There's also bump dots in bright colors and also raised up so you can feel them. There are also high contrast and large print number labels that you could put on your microwave keypad so that you can use your appliances independently. Again, this is just a small sample of some of the tools that I might train somebody on in order to perform the activities of daily living independently and more safely.
Vision Forward Store.
Hi, I'm Susan Eggold. Welcome to the Vision Forward Store. Many of the people who come through our doors know that vision loss is affecting their daily life. They're just not sure what products might help them. I want to show you something called the Colorino. It's a color identifier, and it's used by people who need help identifying the colors of objects. For instance, if you're getting ready in the morning for work or school, and you want to know what color your clothes or shoes are. So with the color identifier, we simply put it against our clothing item. Black. Press the button, and it told me that the shirt I'm wearing is black.
We look forward to seeing you at Vision Forward, 912 North Holly Road, Milwaukee, 414-615-0100, vision-forward.org.
My name is Sanbrita Mandal. I'm an optometrist at UW Health, and I'm also the Director of Low Vision Services at our UW Health Eye Clinics. Welcome to the AMD Symposium, and we hope this information you receive from our symposium is helpful for you or your loved one who is going through vision loss from age-related macular degeneration. In low vision optometry, we are doing a full functional vision assessment to get a better understanding of how people with vision loss are performing tasks with their vision and where they're struggling. And so that gives us an idea on how we can help them meet their goals in terms of magnification, telescopic lenses, lighting, filters, contrast. So we do a full array of exams, not just including visual acuity, but also reading, continuous text, contrast sensitivity, lighting assessment, filter assessment, visual field test for people who have age-related macular degeneration or other macular issues. We do test the central field of vision a little bit more detailed, and that way we can give you a better understanding how your disease is working and how it's affecting your vision. We also review your OCT results with you, just so that you also have a better understanding how your retina looks and how it applies to your vision. In terms of help with low vision, we cannot get your vision back, but what we try to do is help enhance your vision through different adaptations or magnifications so that you can still continue to live your life independently despite your vision loss. I just want to request that if any of you are suffering through your vision loss and it's in its early stages and you know that vision loss is irreplaceable, please vocalize and advocate for yourself and let your eye care providers know. You can also schedule for a low vision visit without a consult in our clinics, but also you can contact the Wisconsin Council of the Blind for resources. But the sooner you go through vision rehabilitation, the more confident you'll feel with your independence and the more happy you'll be in your lifestyle as well. Sometimes vision loss is like losing a limb or a family member, and we all go through grief. So if you ever need to reach out and talk to somebody about it, the council has some wonderful support groups, but also talk to your primary care provider or your eye care provider. We do have a social worker on hand at our eye clinics now in person. So you have plenty of resources here, and we're here to support you.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Barbara Blody. I'm a retina specialist and a professor in the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Science at the University of Wisconsin. And I want to welcome you back to this session, this part of the symposium. It's been great to hear about low vision from the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. They've been our partners in planning this symposium for you. The last time we had this symposium was October 2019, and I think we can all agree that was a different time in our world, but we're glad we can have this virtual meeting for you. Give us feedback on how this type of session is going and how it works in your life with your family. My job today is really to give you some of the basics of macular degeneration. Many of you already know this, but I'm going to review a few of the key factors I'd like to address who gets it, who gets macular degeneration. Then I'm going to discuss what it is macular degeneration, and finally, what can we do about it? How do we treat macular degeneration? So who gets macular degeneration? It is called age-related macular degeneration because it happens in older people. If somebody comes to me that's 30 years old with a diagnosis of macular degeneration, I can pretty much say that's not right, although there can be conditions that affect young people that do cause degeneration, but it's not age-related macular degeneration. So typically, the patient with age-related macular degeneration is going to be in their late 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. That's the common scenario. Secondly, it's a condition of Caucasian people, so ethnic group matters. It's more common in white people of Northern European background, so Germans, Scandinavians, a lot of people who are in Wisconsin, our roots are in those countries. It is not common in Asian, African, Hispanic patients. And so there are other eye conditions that may occur in those ethnic groups, or races, but not typically macular degeneration. What about the risks that we can modify? So we really can't change our age. We can't change our ethnicity or our genetics, which is part of that ethnic group. But what can we do in terms of risk? What risks maybe could make it worse? What things could we modify in our life to make it better? There aren't many. We do know that smoking puts you at greater risk. It worsens macular degeneration. So we want people to stop smoking if possible, because even years of smoking in the past can affect macular degeneration. We also know that a healthy diet and lifestyle helps. So by that, we mean exercise, we mean healthy food, especially food that's rich in good fatty acids for us, for example, in fish and nuts, and also lutein. Lutein is really a good nutrient that's found in vegetables, egg yolk, that can really help strengthen our eyes, we think, and may be protective for macular degeneration. So those are things we can do to help modify those risk factors. What is macular degeneration? That's a really good question. We know a lot about what it looks like. We don't know a lot about the causes. Macular degeneration causes changes in the center of the retina. The center of the retina is called the macula, and that's why it's called macular degeneration. So the center of the retina, we see some yellow spots. Those are drusen or deposits that are found under the retina and probably are a result of waste products as those cells are trying to regenerate, our retinal cells. Those drusen really don't cause symptoms, but are a hallmark of the condition, something that we can easily recognize just by looking inside your eye. The other signs that we see inside the eye are pigment, even increased pigment and loss of pigment. And then if things really change into the more severe stage, we can see an absence of retina, like a cookie cutter sort of took out part of the retina, or we can start to see changes because there are blood vessels growing where they shouldn't. They are leaking or bleeding or causing scar tissue. So that's what we see. It's really a deterioration of those macular retinal cells right in the center of your vision. We don't know if it's caused by lack of oxygen or increased inflammation or nutrition to the cells. We really don't have a clear understanding of why it's happening, but we do know the process from the mild to the moderate to the severe stage. We know that it starts out as dry, and many of you are familiar with dry and wet macular degeneration, but when we see those drusen, we call it dry. There may be no symptoms with those drusen at all, so only your eye doctor would know when they've dilated your eyes. At that point, the patient generally is doing really well, although we do now know there are more symptoms than we realize. So things that go beyond just reading the eye test. There are symptoms which was mentioned earlier where there's lack of contrast It's hard to see gray on gray. Something like reading a newspaper and reading a phone book, very difficult because the print is gray and the paper is gray. We also see people having problems with glare, as was mentioned earlier. It's difficult to have light directly coming at them. And it's also hard to transition from a very bright indoors to the outdoors or to come from the outdoors in. So all this can happen with dry macular degeneration. The symptoms as it gets more severe, if that happens, and that may not happen to everyone, but more severe symptoms might include losing a patch of vision. So that area where the retina, part of the macula, is gone, you may see it as loss of vision. There's just a blank spot or a dark spot. And if we get into the wet macular degeneration, and we're going to hear about that from our panel, then patients may experience blurry central vision suddenly and tilted or jumbled or distorted vision, again in the center. This isn't going to take away all your vision. You won't go blind. You won't lose your peripheral vision. So those are comforting words when I see patients with macular degeneration. But it is the central vision that we're trying to preserve. And finally, what can we do about macular degeneration? Well, for that early stage, we put patients on vitamins, eye vitamins, we call them, just to be simple. But really, they're not acting as vitamins. It's not like a one-a-day vitamin that you're taking just to replace that little bit of vitamin you may be missing in your diet. These are high doses of very specific vitamins, specifically zinc and A and C and lutein. They're there to really try to help those cells in your retina stay healthy. And it's more than just a vitamin, it's really a treatment. When we get to the wet stage, if people are to reach that stage, there are many treatments that you're going to hear about, including injections in the eye and other new exploratory, innovative treatments for the wet. In terms of the dry, though, we don't have a good way to stop this disease. We don't have a cure for macular degeneration, but please know that there's a lot of work in that regard, a lot of research. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Mihai Mititelu. He's the moderator of this second panel discussion, and you'll hear more of these questions, the medical questions, from you, the audience who have sent in the questions, and we'll get our panelists to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blody. And again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second part of the AMD Symposium. My name is Mihai Mititelu, and I'm one of the retina specialists at the UW Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences. I'll be moderating a panel of colleagues on the faculty, and we will be answering the questions you have submitted as part of the registration process. This session is divided into three main sections. We will talk about the general overview of AMD at the beginning, then we will discuss medication and treatments, and finally, we will discuss some of the current research in AMD. At this time, I would like to ask my colleagues on the panel to introduce themselves prior to delving into the questions.
Hi, my name is Kim Stepien. I'm a professor of ophthalmology here at the UW.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Shildroth. I'm an assistant professor at ophthalmology at UW.
Hi, I'm Ramasa Chana. I'm a retina specialist and assistant professor here at UW.
Hi, and I'm Jonathan Chang, also assistant professor at UW.
Great. Welcome and thanks again for being on the panel. Would like to start with the general overview of AMD, and there were several questions, excellent questions submitted by the audience. The first question is from Kathleen in Madison. She states that I have dry AMD for now, so I'm quote unquote lucky. Please explain the difference and the outcomes for both types of AMD. Dr. Chang, would you like to answer this?
Sure, great question, a very common question that we face all the time in the clinics. So as Dr. Blody mentioned, there's two forms of macular degeneration, the dry form and then the wet form. The most common form is actually the dry form, and often patients with this dry form start out with very few symptoms, maybe might not even notice some of the changes. The dry form typically tends to progress very slowly, so most patients have mild changes in their eyesight, and they might notice some waviness or blurriness or distortions, straight lines being harder to see straight, or things like that decreased contrast sensitivity. In some cases, the dry form can become more advanced, and that can lead to those patches or missing spots in the vision where the retina is not functioning as well, or even missing or very thin. In a small percentage of patients, they can develop wet macular degeneration. Often, they may have had some mild or pre-existing dry macular degeneration, and something changes. And in this change, there's a buildup of fluid. The retina becomes thicker, and sometimes there's even some blood. And often, the patient will notice that just suddenly there's a big change in the eyesight. Fortunately, there is treatment now for macular degeneration, and also with our increased technology and techniques, we have ways of detecting this wet form of macular degeneration much earlier so that we can even prevent some of the more advanced and serious changes from it. That treatment is an injection of medicine inside the eye, and if we catch people early, some of the studies have shown that within 5 years, patients maintain their vision from the start of their wet macular degeneration. And that's a big change from where it was 15, 20 years ago, where within 6 months they could have really severe vision loss. So just to summarize, the dry form tends to be more mild, slower progressing, can often just be minimally with symptoms, maybe some distortion, waviness, blurriness. That's where the eye vitamins can come in and help in slow progression. If you develop the wet form, part of why we recommend regular screening with macular degeneration is to catch that early, because if caught early, then we can really maintain vision well, even with treatments.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Cheng, for highlighting these nice differences between the two forms. And I think the next question is semi-related to this question. And this was asked by multiple members of the audience, including Shirley from Arlington Heights, Lorna from Madison, and Mary from Oshkosh. They say that my doctor recommended I take vitamins, and I'm curious to learn more. I was told that AREDS2 vitamins are not recommended for early stage AMD or for people with a strong family history of macular degeneration. Why not? What is the harm? Part of the same question is, what is the range of time for AMD development and progression? How do you stop the progression? Dr. Channa, would you like to?
Absolutely. So I think that's a very good question, and a question that for which the National Eye Institute actually funded a large study involving thousands of patients to see what was the effect of vitamins on the progression of macular degeneration. So as you've already heard from some of my colleagues here, that vitamins can decrease the progression of the dry form of AMD and basically decrease its progression to the more advanced forms of AMD. However, these vitamins are not recommended for every patient with AMD. So when your eye doctor looks at your eye, they would actually categorize your AMD into various stages. So either patients have no AMD, they just have a few of those drusen deposits that Dr. Blody talked about, or they have early AMD, or they have an intermediate stage of AMD. And the vitamins are really recommended for the intermediate stage AMD. And again, as Dr. Blody mentioned, these vitamins are actually special vitamins. They're very high dose vitamins. And they do have some level of toxicity. It's rare, but they can have it. And they can interfere with your other medications, with other systemic diseases that you may have. And so we do have to basically weigh the risks and benefits of these vitamins. And the studies that involve thousands of people have shown that the risk to benefit ratio is best for patients with intermediate stage AMD. And therefore, we don't recommend them just if there is a family history or if you have early AMD. For those patients, we do recommend that you do have your eye exams because your doctor can tell you when you're ready to use those vitamins. In terms of progression, the vitamins have been shown to decrease the risk of progression to advanced AMD by up to 25% over 5 years. So they can really be helpful if you have that proper stage of AMD for which they're recommended.
Great. That's a great overview of the AREDS2 and kind of the progression of AMD. Next is a question from Deanne from Beloit, who brought in a two-part question. Both aspects are very important. She states that I have myopic macular degeneration. What is the difference between age-related macular degeneration and myopic macular degeneration? Are the treatments any different? How likely is it that I will go blind from this? Dr. Schildroth, do you want to answer
Great.
this?
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. So myopic degeneration, myopia, is a nearsightedness. And so we tend to see degeneration when someone is very nearsighted, not just like a -1, but like -5 or a -10. And when the eye is nearsighted, it is too long. And light comes into a focus in front of the retina. That's why we need to wear glasses or contacts in order to fix that. And when the eye is very, very long, it tends to stretch and it tends to crack and can break down. And that's when we might see these changes like myopic degeneration. And myopic degeneration can, in some ways, look similar to age-related macular degeneration when there's severe thinning of tissues, and we might even see development of new blood vessel growth. But we tend to see it differently in younger people rather than the 60-plus range that we might see in the age-related macular degeneration. The treatments can be similar. So if we have a new blood vessel growth, we can treat that with the same injections that we treat with the age-related macular degeneration. The nice thing about the myopic degeneration is it is very sensitive to these medications. We might need only a handful, 1, 2, or 3 injections in order to control that new blood vessel growth. That's not always true, but that's often the case for myopic degeneration. There is not any research that's specific to the myopic degeneration treatment that's going on right now. But there is a lot of research actually on prevention of severe myopia that's often targeted towards children. And so if our questioner has family members who might be school-aged children and already showing signs of nearsightedness, they might be interested in learning more about that option. And a great question about going blind. We can never really comment specific on somebody's chance of going blind without examining them. And so we absolutely recommend a full eye exam and follow-up as recommended with your doctor. We definitely can see severe vision loss and lots of eye diseases, including age-related macular degeneration and myopic degeneration. Myopic degeneration is also, of course, associated with being very nearsighted, which also is a risk factor for retinal detachments, which can also be really vision limiting. And so there's another reason to be following up very closely with your doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Schildroth. I think this is a kind of a great way to highlight the age differences between myopic degeneration and age-related myopic degeneration, and also kind of the different prevention strategies with those for myopic degeneration starting earlier in life and being targeted towards proper eye health in childhood. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. The second question from Deanne is as follows. She states that years ago, she had cataract removed in one of the eye. This was associated with macular degeneration development and the need for Avastin shots in the eye. The degeneration is now in remission. She's asking how likely will it be that it's going to return? Also, if I now have second eye cataract removed, will this increase the likelihood of this eye to needing Avastin shots in the future? Dr. Chang, you mentioned treatments before. Would you like to answer this?
Yeah, so great question. A very common situation because cataracts, which affect the lens of the eye in the front part of the eye, are also an age-related problem. So many of our patients find themselves having macular degeneration, and then also they may need cataract surgery. And so for many years, there's been questions about how does cataract surgery affect the progression of macular degeneration? And right now, most of the data suggests that it should be pretty safe to have cataract surgery even if you have macular degeneration. So if your doctor feels that a cataract surgery is appropriate given your eye diseases, then it should be safe to proceed with cataract surgery. But given that you have macular degeneration, there should be some continued monitoring. And as we had talked about before, if there is a switch from that dry form to the wet form, if we catch it earlier with the monitoring, then we can really maintain good vision overall. In terms of the second eye having a cataract surgery and then possibly developing macular degeneration, developing wet macular degeneration, actually probably a higher risk for developing wet macular degeneration in the second eye is having had wet macular degeneration in the first eye. So our bodies have some symmetry to them, and it appears that people who have wet macular degeneration in one eye are at a much higher risk in several years following to developing that wet macular degeneration in the other eye. And so there should be close monitoring there as well, regardless of cataract surgery status. Finally, if you've had wet macular degeneration and been fortunate that you've been treated and no longer need additional treatments, there is some data that suggests down the line there could be a reactivation of that wet macular degeneration. Most of the time, those instances occur within about the first year, but as high as maybe 1 out of 4 people several years down the line may develop reactivation of their macular degeneration.
Great, thank you. The next 2 questions were asked by Teal from Raleigh, North Carolina, and Sandra from Oregon. They're asking how common is a genetic connection in AMD, and also how to identify the early signs of AMD. Dr. Stepien.
That is such a good question. So a lot of research has gone into understanding what it is about us that makes us get macular degeneration. So we've looked at our DNA, and our DNA is made up of what we call genes. And several risk factor genes have been identified that have been associated with macular degeneration. Several of these risk factor genes are part of what we call the immune response. So a part of our immune response is something we call the complement cascade. And mutations in genes that participate in this complement cascade seem to cause a higher risk or a potential risk for developing macular degeneration. However, it's very complex. So despite many smart people spending a lot of time on this, we don't have a way of doing a genetic test and predicting if you're going to get macular degeneration. At the very best, we can guess that you potentially have an increased risk. But we do know that macular degeneration is familial, meaning that if you have a first-degree relative, a parent or a sibling who has macular degeneration, your risk of developing macular degeneration goes up 4-fold. So about 10 to 20% of patients who have macular degeneration will have a family member who also who are at that, can identify a family member who also has macular degeneration. So the best way to determine the earliest signs of macular degeneration are to get dilated fundus exams or eye exams with an eye care provider. Usually we recommend starting at about age 60. And if you have a family history, it's even more important to make sure that you're getting those screenings.
Great, thank you. Very important points there. The next section will focus on medication and treatments. And this is a question raised by Raymond from Wisconsin Dells. He asks about the preventative methods that can be employed for children of those afflicted with AMD, and I guess this ties into some of the prevention strategies, Dr. Stepien.
Sure. So what can we do to reduce our risk of macular degeneration? And Dr. Bloody gave us a few of those hints. We can influence the environmental factors that play a role in macular degeneration. So smoking is a big one. We know that reduces the oxygen that gets to our eyes and can increase the risk of degeneration in the eye. So stopping smoking, even cutting back smoking, can have a big impact. Ideally, though, don't smoke. Other things include a healthy lifestyle. So having a very healthy diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, maintaining a healthy weight can be very helpful. We also know that the sun and full spectrum light can be damaging to our eyes. Just like we can get a sunburn on our skin, our eyes are affected by full spectrum bright light. So wearing a visor and/or sunglasses when you're in full spectrum light can be very helpful.
Great. Thank you for this overview of preventative strategies and kind of knowing the lifestyle changes needed for prevention of AMD. The next question comes from Bonita from Lone Rock. She states that she had dry AMD since 2017 and taking AREDS PreserVision vitamins. This has turned to wet several months ago, and she received a total of 3 Avastin shots. At the same time, she has high blood pressure, hypertension, for which she is taking losartan. She's asking us if we have any recommended blood pressure range to prevent more bleeding with her wet AMD. Dr. Schildroth, any thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, so we know that high blood pressure can increase the risk for lots of eye diseases. And so we absolutely want to be recommending you manage your high blood pressure. We talked about other systemic things like diet and smoking. We know that there's a lot of things that happen in your body that can absolutely affect the eye. But we as ophthalmologists never are gonna give you a target range. We really want your primary doctor who knows your whole body to give you that range. And then we just recommend that you follow that with guidance from someone who can track your whole body. There's not a target range that will completely prevent any further damage to eyes.
Great, thank you. This is a very important point that kind of emphasizes the cooperation between us retina specialists and the primary care providers in controlling kind of the systemic risk factors to help protect your retina is very important. The next question was asked by Jennifer from Madison, and it's actually a two-part question. She states that my central vision is decreasing. Is there any treatment that can retard the rate and or reverse it? Can the central vision area permanently plateau, meaning would it never increase or decrease in size? She also mentions her diet. She states that I eat well related to eye health foods, except for sugar. She's asking us if we know how much sugar should she restrict herself to. Dr. Channa, any thoughts?
Sure. So I think the first thing to know is the central vision loss from wet or dry macular degeneration? So if it's from dry macular degeneration, it does, so dry macular degeneration currently doesn't have any FDA-approved treatments. That is not to say that there aren't treatments on the horizon, and there are, in fact, lots of treatments that people are working on and are currently in clinical trials. So you may be able to be eligible for one of these clinical trials. And if untreated, however, it does tend to slowly progress. So that central loss of vision would slowly progress over time. It is a very slow progression, and it does stay restricted to the center. So you're unlikely to lose your peripheral vision because of this. The other cause of central vision loss could be if you have wet macular degeneration. Wet macular degeneration does have approved treatments, so you could get treatment for it. Sometimes, however, if it has become a scar tissue, it may not be amenable to treatment. And so in that case, it's usually likely to remain stable for a long time without enlarging. However, you do require monitoring and regular exams because you can develop a new area of wet macular degeneration adjacent to that area of scarring, or you may also develop a dry spot adjacent to that area of scarring. In terms of the second part of your question regarding sugar, so in general, healthy diet is great, as we've already discussed in the panel, for preventing progression of macular degeneration and even development of macular degeneration. There is no specific cutoff for sugar intake that we recommend. We do recommend that you follow your primary care doctor's guidelines, and it's especially relevant if you have other systemic comorbidities like diabetes. So you really want to watch that. But as far as your AMD is concerned, we don't recommend any specific cutoff for your sugar intake.
Great, thanks for the very useful points. We have one more question in this section, and this is from Sarah Jane in Madison. She states, what to expect if I develop AMD as my doctor predicts? How should I prepare? What should I have around the house? Any thoughts, Dr. Stepien?
Yes, that is so scary. The biggest thing is to make sure that you are getting regular eye care and regular exams. So if you do develop a change, that we can intervene. If you have the beginning changes of macular degeneration and your vision's being affected, there are little things that can make a big difference. Sometimes just having better lighting in the house, going through the house and increasing the light bulb wattage can make a big difference. Other things that can include, there's a lot of different things we can do. The healthy lifestyle we talked about is a big thing. So, getting your diet rich in foods with lutein, like green leafy vegetables, orange and yellow pigmented foods, diets rich in omega-3 fatty acids, saltwater fish like salmon and tuna, or vegetative sources like flaxseed are a great source of omega-3. So those things can be very helpful. If your vision progresses to a point where it's very impaired or becoming more impaired, sometimes other decisions have to be made. That can be whether or not it's safe to drive without you having that pit in your stomach or your passengers having the pit in their stomach. In really extreme cases, I've even had some of my patients decide to move their household to areas where they have options for other transportation, or they can walk to places like that. So just kind of understanding, together with your health care provider, your eye care provider, we're going to do everything we can to help you maintain your vision. But if this does progress, we do have resources to help out. And we heard some wonderful options from our low vision specialists here today at the Wisconsin Council. So there are a lot of different aids and people with specialized training who can help out if the vision does become very impaired. We've mentioned this before, but I think it's very comforting for people to know that people do not usually go black blind from macular degeneration. So it's never going to be at a point where you can't tell that there's a doorway across the room or things like that. And sometimes that's very comforting and helps with some of those fears.
Great, very useful. Thanks for emphasizing these strategies and also stressing the importance of working with your retina provider or comprehensive ophthalmologist or optometrist to really see how your condition progresses over time. We're going to move next to the third part of the session. We will focus on research, clinical trials, and AMD resources. And the first question in this session comes from Rita from Wanakee. She actually asked a two-part question. The first one is, are there ongoing research studies related to dry AMD? And I'm happy to answer this. Feel free to add more if you have any thoughts on this. But just to summarize what Dr. Blody and my colleagues have mentioned, dry AMD can be divided into three main forms: early, intermediate, and advanced. We know that for the intermediate form, we recommend the AREDS2 formula of antioxidant vitamins. However, as it stands, currently there are no treatments that are FDA approved for the most advanced form of dry AMD. We call it geographic atrophy, and that's basically loss and degeneration of the cells in the back of the eye. Nonetheless, I think Dr. Chan alluded to this. There are several promising research options underway, and I'd like to highlight a couple of them. An important approach is actually targeting the immune system, and specifically targeting the complement cascade, which you mentioned during your genetics question, Dr. Stepien. And this complement cascade has been long identified as being a culprit in the development and progression of AMD. There are two new drugs that are in advanced late-stage clinical trials, and we are actually a site here at UW for one of these medications. And they are actually injected into the eye like regular injections for wet AMD with anti-VEGF agents. Like currently available treatments, these have proven safe already for human use, and we also have some early preliminary results that are promising, and they show slowing down of this rate of loss and degeneration of the cells in the back of the eye. Nonetheless, more advanced, more definitive results and any regulatory approvals are a few years away. And I think this highlights an important point with clinical trials that I think it's worth mentioning, and that's that they take a long time to ensure safety and effectiveness of the new therapy, hence this long journey from drug or product conception to FDA approval. Another concept under investigation with advanced dry AMD is the possibility of replacing some of these dying cells using a stem cell approach. And this actually ties into the second part of the question asked by Rita. Is there stem cell research being done to interrupt or help prevent AMD? And the answer is definitive yes. The cells that provide support to the photoreceptors in the back of the eye can be produced from stem cells and actually implanted under the retina in a surgical procedure in the operating room. Interestingly, we have colleagues here at UW who work on this and who are working on implanting not just the support cells, but even photoreceptors in the future. And Dr. Dave Gam, our colleague, unfortunately could not be here today, but he's an authority in this field and he's advancing this research with some very original ideas. We know so far that from studies that we've reviewed, these transplanted cells have been shown to survive, and they actually have been shown to help improve visual function. So this is very encouraging. However, as with many clinical trials, more work needs to be done, and stem cells treatments for AMD will have a long way to go before approval, as we need to learn more about the effectiveness, the right strategy, and the safety of this treatment approach. So we mentioned a few options for dry AMD and clinical trials in this area, but I'd like to briefly touch upon research on wet AMD. And this is also a hot area where researchers are focusing on improving current treatments and providing better and more efficient alternatives to the frequent schedule of anti-VEGF injections that I think we all see across our clinics and your audiences can relate to in many instances. One research approach involves the use of a refillable drug reservoir. This is actually a small permanent implant the size of a grain of rice. It is implanted into the eye in the operating room right under the eyelid. and it is filled with a concentrated version of the anti-VEGF medication ranibizumab, or Lucentis, as some of you know it. So patients would not have to come in every 4 to 8 weeks to get their regular injections, but would come in every 6 months or so to get this implant refilled. Another promising therapy for wet AMD is actually gene therapy, which offers the hope of a potential one-and-done treatment. And we have just started a clinical trial here at UW in our department with Dr. Cheng as the principal investigator. We are currently recruiting for that. And we are using already proven gene therapy methods to give the eye the ability to make its own anti-VEGF medication. There are two main methods to approach this. In one of them, we inject the gene therapy underneath the retina in a surgical procedure in the operating room. The other one is a simple injection into the eye in the doctor's office, just like patients get anti-VEGF injections for wet AMD. Despite all the promises of gene therapy and the encouraging early phase results, just like with stem cells, this is still early as we are trying to learn more about the long-term effectiveness and safety of this procedure. Nonetheless, in summary, I think it's an exciting time for research and practice in the world of AMD. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone here that we think that in the next decade, we will have new tools and new modalities to help patients with both wet and dry AMD who could previously not receive help from us. So the second question in this section was again asked by many of our attendees, including Diane from Bailey's Harbor, Jean from Appleton, Jennifer from Madison, and Christine from McFarland. And this is also a two-part question. They ask, how can one find about the newest findings on AMD research, and how can one learn about clinical trials? Also, they ask, how can AMD patients acquire the latest developments in the field of AMD? And I'd like to highlight 3 resources, and I'm biased, but I'd like to start with the Clinical Eye Research Unit in our Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at UW. This is the main clinical research arm of our department that has been in existence for more than 40 years, and it provides anywhere from small investigator-initiated trials all the way to national landmarks clinical trials, many of which are on age-related macular degeneration. You can learn more about AMD research and about our own unit and the research that's going on by going to the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences website, going under the research header and selecting the Clinical Eye Research Unit, where we also maintain a list of actively recruiting clinical trials, many of which are for AMD. If you're interested in participating and to see if you're a candidate, there are 2 main ways to approach this. One of them is to ask your primary eye care provider, so either optometrist or comprehensive ophthalmologist, for referral to our retina clinics, where we can determine if you really are a candidate. There are exclusion and inclusion criteria for these trials. But also you can go to the website that I just mentioned and call our phone number for the Clinical Eye Research Unit, where we have many of our lovely study coordinators who would be happy to answer questions about our ongoing research and guide you through the referral process. The second resource I'd like to mention is another website. It is called clinicaltrials.gov. It is a web-based resource for patients, families, the general public, researchers, and healthcare providers that provides resources on publicly and privately funded clinical trials from a variety of medical conditions, not just ophthalmic ones. This website is actually very rigorously structured. It is sponsored by the National Library of Medicine and the National Institutes of Health, and is actually the world's largest clinical trials database, with more than 300,000 clinical trials from about 210 countries. The website is free and easy to access, and you can actually search by specific medical condition, with age-related macular degeneration being one of these conditions. Last but not least, I'd like to mention the American Academy of Ophthalmology, or AAO. This is a great resource to learn about new developments on AMD. The AAO we are all members of, and it is the world's largest organization of eye doctors and surgeons, and it is focused on improving ophthalmic education and on advocating for our patients and the general public. The AAO offers an iSmart program that provides the public with the most trusted and up-to-date information on a variety of ocular conditions, including age-related macular degeneration. To learn more about these resources, you can visit the Academy's website, which is very simple, aao.org. I don't know if there are any other questions. I think we've covered the main ones that were submitted, and I think we have a couple of minutes before we finalize our panel.
Is Stargardt specific to the Northern European genetic connection?
I'll take that one. So Stargardt's has been called juvenile macular degeneration in the past. What it is a degeneration of the center vision part of the eye, the macula, very similar to age-related macular degeneration. However, we understand the genetics of Stargardt disease much better. Stargardt disease does not just affect Northern European populations, it affects people worldwide from all races and ethnicities. So it's a very distinctly different eye disease than age-related macular degeneration. I'm very happy to say there's a lot of great research going on for Stargardt disease too, with actually several clinical trials actually active, and we're going to be a site for a preventative treatment for Stargardt disease too. So, but to answer your question, very distinctly different diseases and different populations are affected. Usually a much more younger population, although older people can also be affected by Stargardt disease.
Great. Okay. So with all this in mind, I think we have reached the end of our symposium, 2 very useful hours. And I'd like to first thank our audiences for their participation, for the great questions. And I'd like to thank our panelists for both sessions, for their time and expertise and advice. And we hope, I think on behalf of everyone, that you find this sessions to be helpful and informative. I'd like to use a few minutes to thank our 2021 sponsors, Associated Bank, Lighthouse Guild, and SVA Certified Public Accountants. For additional information, 2 more websites, which are great resources. The first one is the Council's website at wcblind.org, and the second one is the UW Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at eyes.wisc.edu. Thank you once again, and have a great evening, everyone.